All right, what is happening in California? Governor Gavin Newsom has issued a statewide emergency, a state of emergency, granting himself and his government a whole new slew of powers. All of this happening, coincidentally, just 4 weeks, just 1 month before Donald Trump gets sworn into office. And we've heard from a number of lawmakers, state lawmakers, that say this is completely uncalled for. There is absolutely no reason to do this unless they say there's another reason for it. We're going to explain. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So it feels like forever ago. It feels like a long lost dream or a nightmare that just 4 years ago, our government locked this country up. In the last 8 months of Trump's first term, using massive hysteria from the pandemic to convince a large enough chunk of the public that it was a good idea to give the government more power. State after state took advantage and jumped on the bandwagon, issuing state of emergencies and granting themselves massive unchecked power. The power to close up the economy, the power to force us to stay in our homes, the power to tell us how to dress. You must wear a mask. It's mandated by your governor. The more Orwellian the state, the crazier the policies. California and New York even rolling out a tip hotline and encouraging people to rat out their neighbors and family members if they went outside without a mask. 6-foot distancing nonsense and all the rest, you know this. All of that happening right before the 2020 election. Well, now, just like clockwork, it's starting again. Just weeks before Trump's inauguration, Peter Hotez actually went on MSNBC 2 weeks ago and admitted publicly on the air that a lot of big things are coming down the pike starting on January 20th, 2025, the literal day Trump's sworn into office. You can't make this up. Watch.
Here's the reason why we need to care about this stuff, Nicole, is that we have some big picture stuff coming down the pike starting on January 21st. Mr. Bloomberg mentioned H5N1. That I'm really worried about. It's all over wild birds on the western part of the United States and going up in the north. It's getting into the poultry. We're seeing sporadic human cases, no human-to-human transmission yet, but that could happen. It's in the cattle, it's in the milk, and that's just the beginning. We have another major coronavirus likely brewing in Asia. We've had SARS in 2002, SARS-2, COVID-19 in 2019.
And now it's starting, like always, starting in California, always testing and rolling out their crazy policy ideas in California, testing the water. Literally, we're going to explain that in the most compliant state in the country, launching new pandemic hysteria. So what the hell is happening in California? Well, Governor Gavin Newsom yesterday declared a statewide emergency, state of emergency, because of one new severe case of bird flu, he said. And get this, the one single case isn't even in California. It's across the country in Louisiana. Check this out. Governor Newsom just declared a state of emergency due to an increased number of H5N1 bird flu cases that they say have been detected in dairy cows. A state of emergency means the government can grant itself additional powers via fiat. We've all seen this before. We know how twitchy California gets when it comes to this stuff, how quick the government is to capture additional power. And that's exactly what they're doing right now, because a number of California lawmakers are speaking out saying this has nothing to do with the bird flu. The one case they cite in the declaration that he signed didn't even happen in California. It happened in Louisiana, and Louisiana isn't declaring a state of emergency. Wait till you hear why they think Newsom may really be doing this. It's crazy. And you could see Newsom cites in the declaration the reason the state of emergency is necessary right now, why he has to do this now, he says, is because the first instance of severe illness reported in a human just happened, not in California. It happened on the other side of the country in Louisiana. A man in Louisiana was exposed to bird flu through dead or ill birds in his backyard, the CDC confirmed on Friday. The CDC also maintains that no case of human-to-human spread of bird flu has been detected and assessed the risk from the disease is low. Well, if the risk is low, according to the CDC, and no human-to-human spread has occurred, then what the hell is California doing this for? I don't know exactly, but I do know it gives the governor a lot of additional authority. Could such authority Allow the state to block certain federal action? Maybe. We know Newsom held an emergency roundtable with Democrat leaders to brainstorm how to stop Trump's deportation plan and his other policy objectives. Trump has California on his radar, folks. He wants to open California up. He wants to fix a lot of the problems that have plagued that state for decades, like the droughts and the wildfires and the water problems. Watch.
You started talking about this community of Palos Verdes. You talked about California. We have fires raging to the east.
I agree. I agree.
What will you do to help people in this state whose homes are being damaged again and again, or are falling, off of these cliffs right behind us, or burned down, or for the people across the country whose homes are jeopardized by natural disaster?
This is my favorite question of the day. You're asking me what would I do for. Let's talk California first. Is that okay? You mind? So, I was riding with Devin Nunes and some congressmen 4 years ago. I was riding up north in California. And I looked at these fields that were massive. I was telling John, right? My favorite question. I love that somebody would ask me this question. And I never told you to do it, right? Who are you with?
Spectrum News.
Good. Spectrum. It's good. New, hot, right? It's hot. It's doing well. But that's because you ask good questions. So what happened? I'm saying why I look at this field, and it's massive, and in the middle of the field is a little spot of the most green, plush land you've ever seen. I said, and then I'd see another one, these little plots, like 1 and 2 acres, and you'd have 1,000 acres that's barren and dead and dark. And I said, what's the problem here? What is that green acreage? The soil is unbelievably fertile, but they have no water. I said, so do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. We have the water is cut off upstate, up in the north. You know that? And the water, in order to protect a certain little tiny fish called a smelt, they send millions and millions of gallons of water out to the Pacific Ocean, way up north. Never even gets close to here. And in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, all these rich areas, they want to give you like 38 gallons of water to use. You buy a house for a lot of money and then you're allowed to use 38 gallons of water. But you have no water down here. And the reason you have no water, you have the canals. The reason you have no water is because Gavin Newsom didn't want to do it. I had it all done. I had the Department of Commerce at the time, believe it or not, they're the ones that rule on this particular issue. So you have millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps in Canada and all pouring down. And they have essentially a very large faucet. And you turn the faucet, and it takes 1 day to turn it. It's massive. It's as big as the wall of that building right there behind you. And you turn that, and all of that water goes aimlessly into the Pacific. And if they turned it back, all of that water would come right down here and right into Los Angeles. They wouldn't have to have people not use more than 30 gallons and 32 gallons. They want to do that, they're trying to do that.
So here's the crazy thing about California that I never knew until recently. I always just assumed that SoCal always had this drought problem, had to deal with the dry season, etc., causing all the wildfires and everything else. Well, that wasn't the case. California, SoCal specifically, was a lush, hugely wet landscape. What we know as the Central Valley today used to be a giant lake. Look at this. 200 years ago, this is what California looked like. A massive freshwater lake. More water than California knew what to do with. Then it gets transformed into this. 3 massive SoCal lakes. The valley used to be this lush, green, forested landscape, not a high desert. This is what we look like today. No more lakes where Californians have to literally ration their water. So what happened? State policy is what happened. The California government built these massive dams, began damming all of their rivers. Almost all of California rivers today are dammed. Why? Why? That's the question. Stupid government policies, overregulation leads to so many problems. The one river that's completely undammed in California is the Smith River. And it's the cleanest, most beautiful river you'll ever see. So you gotta wonder, would California have all these droughts and wildfires if they didn't do this, if they hadn't have done this? I don't know. Anyways, this is one of the things, just one, that the incoming Trump administration wants to fix. And there's a lot of other stuff. Trump has his eyes focused on California. So could Gavin Newsom be using this state of emergency to grant himself the power he needs to fight the Trump administration on some of this? In late 2018, Trump signed an executive order to speed up the environmental review of water projects in California. He tried to do all of this during his first term, but his administration purposely slow-walked it. Then COVID hit.
A lot of water. I hope you enjoy the water that you're going to have, okay? We need it. The farmers are going to enjoy it. Great for the farmers, great for the people, great for recreation, great for everything you can think of.
Look, this is on Trump's agenda. Here's what he said in September, 3 months ago, while taking questions in Los Angeles. Watch this.
And you have so much water, and all those fields that are right now barren, the farmers would have all the water they needed. And you could revert water up into the hills where you have all the dead forests, where the forests are so brittle. Because no place is like California. I go to Austria. The head of Austria tells me, we have trees that are much more flammable than what you have in California. We never have forest fires because they maintain their forests. And you have all that water that could be used as water, what they call water flow, where where the land would be damp. And you'd stop many of these horrible fires that are costing billions and billions of dollars by the federal government, etc. So one thing I'm going to do for California, vote for me, California. I'm going to give you safety. I'm going to give you a great border. And I'm going to give you more water than almost anybody has. And the farmers up north are going to be able to use 100% of their land, not 1% of their land. And the water is going to come all the way down to Los Angeles. And you're going to have more water than you ever saw. And the smelt is not making it anyway. In fact, they make and grow smelt because it dies all the way up and down the line, and they put stuff that was artificially made. You know that. So you're going to have water in California at a level that you've never seen before. The farmers are going to do great. Those fields are going to be all green instead of 1% green. And maybe even more important, you're not going to have illegal immigrants pouring into your country and killing your family. You're not going to have the problems that you have right now. We're going to lower your taxes. We're going to bring the car industry back because your car industry is gone. We're bringing it back to Detroit at levels that you'll never see again. We'll bring it back to better than it was 30 years ago. But with this group, everything is dead. The automobile industry is dead. The water coming here is dead. And Gavin Newsom is going to sign those papers. And if he doesn't sign those papers, we won't give him money to put out all his fires. And if we don't give him the money to put out his fires, he's got problems. He's a lousy governor. And he treated me very nicely, and I treated him very nicely when I was president. But he's done a lousy job. But there's a case. I said, Gavin, will you sign? It took him like a month and a half or 2 months, and then he decided for political reasons. And then we got hit with COVID, and we had to solve another problem.
All I know is when a state grants itself additional power, always be skeptical. Always ask questions. The government always wants more power. We saw how quickly allowing them to do that can spiral out of control. 2 weeks to slow the spread. Remember that? 2 weeks turned into years. Costed trillions of dollars. Massive inflation ensued. We're still dealing with the consequences of all of that. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.